All right, you're watching KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya. Welcome back. My name is Mike. We talk matters about climate, and today we're focusing on how we can prepare the Kenyan workforce for the green collar job, given that Kenya's green transition is no longer about matters to do with environment. It extends to jobs, agriculture, because agriculture actually supports millions of livelihoods within the country and contributes significantly to the country's GDP. Yet there is a challenge when it comes to post-harvest losses, which now are amounting to 30 to 40%, especially when it comes to horticultural produce. So we want to focus on how we can make sure that our workforce in the country is ready for the green collar jobs. And for that conversation, I'm joined by Millicent Sedi, who is a Senior Manager, Agriculture and Food Systems, MSc. Karibu sana. How are you doing?
Thank you, Mike. How are you?
Mimi niko salama. Kazi tu. Let's get into this conversation. We are talking about matters to do with green collar jobs. When you talk about green collar jobs, what are we really talking about? Yes.
Thank you, Mike. So when you look at green collar jobs, it's imperative to appreciate that these are opportunities that are really ensuring that people are getting dignified employed, then away from that conserving the environment. So what we mean is basically how do we get, especially in agriculture, as we do production, marketing, all the way to getting the produce to the market. But then how do we conserve our environment? So it entails the jobs that come along the value chain nodes. So a practical example would be a tomato farmer, probably in Nyandarua.
Yes.
I want to set up a greenhouse for my potato farm because of effects of climate change. So as I do that, I'll have to do irrigation. So I'll get an installer to come and do installation of the irrigation pumps. So you discover that that is a green job. As I do that, I'll be happy to work with an agroeconomist who really understands what is climate smart farming. So when they come to me and we work together, he's an extension officer or extension worker, but again, coming in to support green transition. So I'll specifically say that these are basically opportunities that are taking us to having a more climate resilient agriculture, especially in Kenya. Yes. Then just a quick one on that. On the supply side, we look at financing. So again, when you look at the formal banks, everybody will be talking about the conventional financing. But when you come to climate smart farming, where we are really keen to support resilience, so how do I come in to become probably a banker, but really targeted towards risk assessment that speak to effects of climate change. So that insurer who's coming to work with me to ensure that I really understand effects of climate change, then my products are customized so that whatever loan I'm getting really speaks to that. That is also coming in through the green collar jobs.
And this also, based on how you've put it, it's something that is extending to even the ordinary farmer, pale mashinani, even the SMEs within the agricultural value chain. Now, you know, when you look at the post-harvest losses they're amounting to, the estimation is around 30 to 40% of produce. Maybe this has been attributed to weak storage, poor logistics, and even in infrastructure gaps. But then again, if those losses were to be reduced significantly, what kind of an economic multiplier are we looking at? What are the effects that that could realistically be seen across rural economies?
Sure. So we appreciate post-harvest losses are immense when it comes to agriculture. And at Microsoft Consulting, we conducted a study just to determine what is that economic impact that is really coming along in this value chain. So we discovered that we are losing over 70 billion, if not farmers are losing over 70 billion when it comes to post-harvest losses, because they are not able to ensure that that produce gets directly to the consumer. So they lose 30% of it. So what you are saying is if we go in and invest in reducing post-harvest management, and here we are looking at accelerating private sector investment, where through financing, the private sectors are coming in to invest on post-harvest techniques. So they are putting up cold storages. As they put up that, we assure that we'll reduce this post-harvest losses. And even as they do that, you look at the ripple effect, because as I do farming, it's not just the direct jobs that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the other indirect jobs. Here I'm looking at transporters, input providers, the agrovet dealers who are really supplying these inputs to my farm, the transporters who are taking my produce from my farm to that processing plant. I'm looking at that process at the end of the value chain, ensuring that we do that to avoid post-harvest management. So when you do that, you ensure that that ripple effect gets to just more or less reducing the post-harvest losses, ensuring that we have food security, because at the end of the day, we are not losing that 30 to 40%, and that automatically reduces the imports. When you reduce the imports, you discover that even the prices of the food go down, because we are now able to be self-sufficient, we are able to produce our own foods. And when you go to households in Kenya, people are able to afford food because the cost of production is not as expensive as if the supply was limited. So at the end of the day, even the livelihoods that we get to impact, because if post-harvest losses are reduced, definitely people will have more income. At the end of the day, they are able to afford the basic meals at the household. Then the employment that comes with it, you discover that agriculture employs close to 70% of the rural population, and the young people also coming in strongly. So again, if we invest that, the ripple effect that really comes to play, away from ensuring there's food security, there's affordable food, we are really keen to say that livelihoods are enhanced because everybody can access the basic needs.
So the ripple effect is felt, reaches everywhere.
Sure.
And also, you know, there's a growing investment when it comes to solar irrigation, cold storage, and agricultural processing, as well as renewable powered logistics. From your perspective, which kind of areas do you see having the highest potential to create large-scale employment, especially for young people? Because as a country, we deal with matters, employment is one of the things that we have to grapple with.
Yes, when you look at employment opportunities, currently you're speaking about digital agriculture. And what I like to appreciate is where we are moving towards is basically ensuring that our farmers appreciate that opportunity. So as we get in, we are looking at how do we really enhance this to make this attractive to the young people? Because currently you discover an average farmer is between 50 to 60 years. So making it very innovative digitally to attract the young people, because we've discovered that young people are really interested into the digital tech. So how do we come in to say that through digital agriculture, young people are able to access their smartphones? As they get their smartphones, they're able to work with these farmers to ensure that the farmers are getting access to better prices. The farmers are able to get that digital extension. You discover that we go to school to train the young people on extension, but it's still manual. So how do we come in to digitize that system to ensure that wherever our farmers are seated and the young people are seated somewhere, they are able to interact through the digital extension platform? Then at the end of the day, you're happy to say that through this digital agriculture, our young people are getting into agriculture value chain nodes. And just to back it up with data, at Microsoft Consulting, we conducted a youth ecosystem development framework, just looking at what is it that the young people are really looking at in getting into this agriculture, because young people are the people that are coming to take up this initiative. So we discovered that at the policy level, what are the systems that are there to promote young people into agriculture? When you go to markets, are they really empowered through the skills that they're getting from schools to get to agriculture? When you talk to financial institutions, are they really coming in to support them to get access to finance? And what are the young people looking forward to? They're looking at farmers being able to take up these services. So for me, I'll say that digital agriculture is the key, and that is where opportunities are really coming in to ensure that even as we talk about effects of climate, our farmers are really empowered to be ready, even as the effects are already happening, the effects of climate change.
Yeah, because it's very important what you've talked about, because when it comes to matters of green transition, the conversation may sound attractive on paper. Sure. Some critics may argue that. But in a way, it remains disconnected from the realities of high cost of living and also issues to do with unemployment. So how do we ensure that there's sustainability? How do we ensure sustainability does not become an elite policy conversation that now excludes Kenyans?
Sure. Yes, I appreciate that green transition is something that we speak about it, but when you look at adoption and everybody coming up, we as a country, we are still taking our good time. So what I'll advise, and what we've done at Microsoft Consulting, we've worked with the financial institutions just to say, as we come in to do climate financing, what are the things that you're looking forward to? So we discover that for it to really get there, we really need to have this patient capital. So as we work with financial institutions, we are saying, are we able to appreciate what farmers are going through? Are we able to give them patient capital? And what I mean by patient capital is basically understanding the grace period that this farmer will have to wait for them to get this produce to the market and for them to be paid, understanding the risk aspects that are involved. So are we saying supply side, that is the banks coming in to say that we are happy to insure your crop. And even as we do that, the banks will not wait for 3 to 10 years for this investment to come back. So are we getting people that are coming in to give this philanthropist funding, where you come in and you jumpstart that initiative, so that by the time we start to see the yield, probably in the next 3 or 5 years, then somebody is there to jumpstart this and say, okay, now you are more or less bankable for the formal institutions to come in. So I'll say it's basically a combination of blended finance, where we are looking at philanthropists coming in to say that they're putting in jumpstart capital. Then once it really gets to a bankable angle, then the financial institutions are coming in. So with that, we are happy to ensure there's sustainability, and again, getting to green transition. Because when you look at things that speak to climate resilience, they take time to be seen. And when we start, we tell farmers that it's basically like a public good. You are coming in, you are doing regenerative agriculture, but by the time you start getting those yields, it takes more time. So again, how patient are we as a system to ensure we support this farmer to move from just being patient all the way to getting the process or the benefits that come with adopting these practices.
Still within that space of turning green risks into jobs, you know, do you think as a country we have fully appreciated agriculture as an industrial growth engine, or we are looking at it from a subsistence activity? Especially because you see it has this potential to drive manufacturing, logistics and exports, even technology adoption. What do you think? Have we fully appreciated agriculture as an industrial growth within the country?
Yes, I'll say we've done. When you look at crops like horticulture, probably the flowers. When you look at it, you discover that farmers are really appreciating that and getting those produce, especially to the export market. When you look at things like avocado, the Hass avocado, we are taking it to the market. But then, like you say, at the farmer level, is this small-scale farmer that takes 70% of farming in Kenya, are they able to appreciate the commercial farming? You discover that not so many of them have gotten to the commercial aspect. And we go back to ask why. Why is it that you discover that land sizes are decreasing, where people are now moving from practicing farming to putting up other investments? Away from that, you are looking at the cost of financing this agriculture is also high. So what we've done is coming back to say, at the end of the day, the farmers are not really affording affordable capital to do agriculture. So you find most of them are shying away from doing commercial farming. Then the market fluctuality that comes through. As a farmer, I'm putting up my crops, I'm putting up my livestock, but when I get to the market again, how assured am I that I'm going to get the best price? So how we are working with the farmers is really to ensure that as farmers get into agriculture, are we bringing in financial institutions that will give them inclusive capital to ensure that the farmers don't really struggle? Then at the end of the day, we are looking at the markets. Are we really supporting the off-takers with the farmers to say, at the end of the day, you really have to have contracts that really confirm that you're going to off-take this produce at a particular price? Then working again with the same financial institutions to say, are we going to insure this crop in case something happens, this farmer is still covered, so that they don't really lose whatever they're putting in. So what I'll say is whenever we are getting there, but you're not yet there, but we really need to work with everybody along the ecosystem to ensure that it's self-sustaining. And I'll always go back to the farmer, supporting that farmer to be motivated to keep on producing. Because if we don't really speak to it, definitely nothing will work. And just going back to what we've seen when it comes to budgetary allocation, and I'm happy that the Kenyan government will be speaking to the budget in the next month or so, you discover that most of these financial institutions and the government itself, we're only allocating 3% of financing to agriculture. So as we do only 3% of our lending portfolio to agriculture, you discover that at the end of the day, where are farmers going to access this capital? Where are they going to access affordable finance? So we need to really have these discussions in the room to say, are we even going to incentivize the financial institutions that are really dedicating money to give to our farmers, to give to people that work with our farmers? So those are the kind of discussions that we really need to kickstart to ensure that there is that sustainability, then farmers moving from subsistence to commercial agriculture.
And you know, financing has always been a challenge when it comes to matters agriculture. And as sometimes banks often view agriculture as risky because of prevailing weather conditions, droughts, floods, unstable markets, unpredictable returns. But then again, technology is trying to change or balance that equation within the whole scope of digital agriculture and data-driven financing. Because we are now seeing satellite imaging, AI-powered analytics, a digital advisory on platforms entering within the agricultural sector. But from a practical point of view, how are these technologies changing now how decision making happens for farmers and even for lenders and insurers?
Thank you, Mike. I'll appreciate that data is key for anyone, whether it's a farmer, whether it's a bank, whether it's an insurer. So when you talk about digital uptake, you look at if farmers are digitizing their farm records, just the basic records at the farm level, it's easy for that financial institution who's trying to access finance to that farmer to see what is that history that we are looking at. It's easy for that insurer to see at the end of the day, we've merged this data to probably weather alerts. So again, how are we looking at it when it comes to having these premiums? So once we digitize all these systems, it's easy for that financial institution to even save on cost of assessing that farmer, because we talk about know your customer. So the time it takes even for me to really validate as a banker that this is a bankable farmer reduces, because I'm able to get that real-time information. Then away from that, you'll discover that most of these formal and informal financial institutions will be looking at collateral, probably physical assets, things like land, probably property, etc., to be used as collateral for me to access this loan. But we are talking about when we come in and adopt digital agriculture. Kenya is really doing great when it comes to adoption of digital technologies, especially mobile payment. So again, linking my farm records to my mobile history, mobile payment history, so the bank can easily access whether I'm bankable or not, and through that they can really customize a product that is conducive for me. So based on that history, especially for the women and the young people who really struggle to have this collateral when it comes to accessing finance, you discover that digitization really enhances them really getting this finance, because banks can use other information as collateral as opposed to the physical assets that the banks more or less have been traditionally accustomed to. So I'll say that is great. Then again, we look at food security, because if we take our farming, let's say digital agriculture up there, it's easy for a country to predict what is that production we are looking at. We appreciate that Kenya is a great consumer of maize. So if you have this data to say that at harvesting we predict that we are going to have this quantity of production, then the government is able to position itself to say, are we okay? Do we need imports? Do we need exports? So we are able even to plan in advance. We are looking at weather alerts. Probably we are expecting the rains to continue for the next month or so. But when we really put it digitized, probably the system will tell us it will not be normal as usual. This rain is going to be cut short in the next 2 months or so. So again, how do we really position our farmers to say it's about time you go and take up some of these improved seed varieties that are really prone to that are really resistant to drought. So again, farmers really getting that information, real-time information to say, because of this digital agriculture technology, I'm able to make informed decisions. I'm going to get better variety. I'm going to plant it. I'm going to manage it this way because I'm getting the digital extension. Then at the end of the day, the financials are coming in to fund me. Then at the end of the day, like we say, food security speaks to everything. Everybody eats every day, 3 times a day minimum. So at the end of the day, we are looking at that food security coming through, young people getting access to capital, getting to agriculture, then the women again coming in strongly, because we've discovered that women are even 80% of farmers in Kenya.
Yeah.
So again, really benefiting from this intervention and sustainability across livelihoods.
Do you think the youth are taking, the young people take agriculture seriously as a form of, say, employment? Because seeing it from a commercial point of view, do you think they take it seriously?
I'll say yes and no. When you look at our commercial farming, if not farming as a whole, it's only 10% of the young people that are really coming in agriculture. And the studies, again, we've done at Microsoft Consulting across different geographies, not just Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Senegal, we discover that the young people are not really incentivized, if not motivated to get into agriculture. Why? Because they look back and our markets are not really stable. Our prices are not really giving them the yields that they look for. Yeah. Or for you to get into agriculture, away from just a few crops, you have to wait for over a year or two for you to get back your income. So again, they're not that patient to wait for 2 or 3 years for them to get proceeds from agriculture. So what we are saying is going back to the systems in place at the technical training institutions, at colleges. Are we really coming in to speak to the young people on benefit of patience, where you come in, you start agriculture, you have to wait for some time, then get your proceeds. Away from that, telling them that it's not about going to the farm and farming and getting dirty, because all of them will want to put on suits, will want to sit in a room that has internet. So again, making it digitized to say you can offer extension through digital extension. Then away from that, working with financial institutions to say the young people here, they can be funded. So how do we come in to fund them to ensure those that the 10% or less that want to get into agriculture are also empowered to get access to capital and even compete in these markets. So with that entire ecosystem, more or less working with actors along the ecosystem, then definitely the young people will be motivated to come back to agriculture.
If you're talking about a digital agriculture, you know, we have to be alive to the fact that there is a digital divide that exists, especially when it comes to farmers in rural communities that may lack smartphones, and even digital literacy, matters to do with reliable internet connectivity. How do we bridge this?
Yes. Yes, I'll appreciate that as we talk about digital agriculture, most of the time people talk about access to connectivity, internet connection, even power. I may have all that, but I discover I don't have electricity in the village. That disappears for a week or two. So just to do that, and I'm speaking from a practical example, at Microsoft Consulting, we've worked with farmers in India, Bihar state, that is not Kenya, where we've come in to say that as a farmer, I'm not getting internet, but through my extension advisor, the government supports them to get connected. So the government supports them to get infrastructure. So they're getting that information through their phone. Then automatically that trickles down to the farmers, where the farmers are able to assemble in a place and get that information. So again, we are saying is that through that model, and we've seen the Indian government coming in strongly to say that even without connectivity, without power, there are systems that farmers can really access it, even as we work with the policymakers to ensure that the infrastructure is in place, where again, as an extension worker, working either with the farmer or with the government or the private actors, I'm coming in to ensure that I'm connected. I sit in a place that has all this facility. I get that information, then trickle that to the farmer. Then what we've also seen with our farmers is even not having internet, but your phone is connected. At the end of the day, getting that SMS that tells you that this is what is happening in the sector. Are you able to get this information? Then as they do that, we spoke about energy, power source. So again, other areas you discover there's no power at all. So again, how do we come in with this renewable renewable energy sources like solar, where our farmers have access to charging their mobile phone, at the end of the day ensuring that they are on. So there are different, depending on the context and the geography, there are different areas how we can work to ensure that the farmers are not left out. And at the end of the day, what you're also saying is once farmers really appreciate that I really need to get this information, then they also trigger the system. If it's about power in the rural areas in Kenya, you'll find farmers really coming up and telling government, can we really ensure we have sustained power?
Yes.
We are getting to politics, so using that as a bargaining tool to say we really need this infrastructure to get us to the market.
Yes.
We are looking at even different ecosystem actors like extension advisors coming in to say there's a challenge probably in this particular part of Kenya. Farmers are not really digital enough to access information through their mobile phone. How do I come in to bridge that gap, get that information, get them through a platform, then share that communication down?
You know, we are living in a time when data is, so to speak, king. And agricultural data now, should it be viewed as a strategic economic infrastructure in the same way that we view roads, electricity, and even banking systems?
Definitely, definitely. Without data, then we are not really making informed decisions. And by data, we mean looking at probably a farmer. So I'm a farmer, I'm coming in, I really want to understand what is happening when we talk about weather. So I'll be happy to say, do we have information? Do we have data that has been processed into information to tell me that this is the normal rainy season, it's going to be this much. Is it going to be floods? Is it going to be okay? So again, I'm making informed decision because data has told me that you need to prepare yourself for this. We are getting to drought. As a farmer, I have data to tell me that you have to go for this drought-resistant variety, seed variety, because there'll be droughts at the end of the day this season. So I'm making that decision because I'm sure this will happen. Then again, looking at financial institutions, you come in and you really want to work with this farmer. They don't have collateral, they don't have any records, but with data, because it's been digitized, you're happy to say I'm making an informed decision because I've seen that this farmer has more or less history when it comes to probably mobile transactions. Same to government, we are looking at data. Currently we struggle to determine what is the production status of different produce in this country. So with data, government is really able to say, are we food secure or food insecure? So with that information, you find that we are more proactive enough as a country to say we really need to turn around quickly to ensure that at the end of the term we are really self-sufficient, because if we don't get there, then it will force us to start importing food. And when you import food, you've seen what's happening currently. The fuel prices are up, inflation is up. At the end of the day, we start working with a nation that is not able to feed its own people.
Yes. Let's quickly look at financing climate resilient infrastructure within the scope of agriculture. And, you know, even the most productive farmer cannot thrive without proper infrastructure. In this case, the real challenge often comes after production. We are talking about transport, we are talking about storage, we are talking about even aggregation and market access. And as a country, we do rely on rain-fed agriculture despite increasing drought cycles, and even now that we have erratic weather systems. Why do you think irrigation expansion has remained slow for years despite us having policy discussions around that?
Yes. So I'll go back to access to information. And like we say, if I'm a farmer, I'm doing my small-scale farming or medium-scale farming, which is 70% of the farmers in the region. I don't have access to information to really tell me that the rains are not coming in as expected because of climate change. So I'll still go back to depending on the rain-fed agriculture because I don't have information. At the end of the day, my mind is still subsistence. I'm not looking at the market. So going back to really ensuring that these farmers are really more or less capacity developed to really appreciate what is coming through. Then you look at the cost of irrigation again, quite unaffordable to most of our farmers in the region. So again, going back to the back end to work with the people that are providing this equipment to say, how do we make it very inclusive for our farmers to access irrigation facilities? We've spoken about things to do with power. So again, you look at where most of our farmers are located, access to electricity is a challenge. So again, how strategic are we to work with people like solar solar installers, if not providers, to come in and say that you really have to use this alternative source of energy. Then at the end of the day, like I said, investing in climate smart, resilient agriculture is a costly affair. So as a farmer, I have the money to put in the irrigation pumps, but at the end of the day, am I really getting the proceed that will give me enough money to probably pay back my money? So we go back to, again, working with the microfinancial institutions and the banks to say that even as we want to really empower farmers to do irrigation, are we really supporting them to ensure that at the end of the day it's more sustainable? So all these ecosystem players put together just to ensure that the farmers are empowered to do it. Then the last one, still on irrigation, you discover that small-scale farmers will have between 1 to 5 acres of land. So if I'm coming in from a village where I only have an acre of land and I want to do irrigation, how economical is that? So again, just coming back and working with the farmers to do a very quick benefit cost analysis to say, if you do irrigation, what is that volume of land that you need to do to ensure that you're getting the return on investment that you're putting in. So all that discussion at the end of the day will be happy to get there.
And finally, what gives you optimism that as a country we can build a resilient, inclusive and green economy that works for every ordinary citizen, everybody? Yes.
We are optimistic as a country. We are optimistic as Kenya, as a continent. Looking at effects of climate change, they're already with us, whether we like it or not. So you discover that we are seeing floods currently. You go to Asal counties, farmers are already losing livestock because of effects of climate change. You come to agriculture crops, you discover again farmers are already losing that. So as a country, we've seen government and private actors being proactive to say how responsive, if not how proactive are we to ensure that we really position ourselves for this transition. We've seen many things coming in. I'll start with the Green Climate Fund that has just been given to Kenya. So again, when you look at that funding, we are happy to appreciate that people are now appreciating that we really need to fund climate resilient agriculture. So we have this Green Climate Fund coming through to support our farmers and the ecosystem actors. Then away from that, we are looking at even the impact that it will bring to our young people, because we are talking about digital agriculture, attracting young people in agriculture. And when you talk about this, you're talking about the system being climate resilient. So even as we do that, we are saying that the young people that are taking more than 75% of our population coming into this ecosystem, it's about time that the systems are well strengthened to ensure that there's sustainability in that model. Then things to do with being self-reliant, not really depending on imports, but probably on exports, where again we really want to control our food prices so that at the end of the day we are able to feed ourselves. Then automatically the ripple effect that trickles down to our GDP, because we discovered that agriculture takes more than 35% of our GDP directly and 27% indirect contribution to GDP. So again, just ensuring that we position ourselves even as we get there is key, and the government and the private actors have really taken this initiative to see that at the end of the day we are well positioned to take up some of these green transition discussions.
Asante sana. That was our time.
Thank you, Mike.
And I thank you for making time to just come and share insights on how the Kenyan workforce can be ready for green collar jobs. That is Millicent Sedi, who is the Senior Manager, Agriculture and Food Systems,